Yay! Woo! Here they are. Here they all come. Hey, everybody. Oh, yay. Okay, I'm just scrolling pages so I can see every one of you. Everybody looks beautiful. Welcome back. I kind of love that this is our little thing we get to do together. I'm delighted to see you. Welcome everybody to Fierce Happy Hour. This is our third week, and I am so happy to see your faces. I want to start right out of the gate by saying thank you to this incredibly wonderful community, where we all just kind of last week said, let's press pause. Let's push. Let's be deeply in this moment with our communities and with this cultural just lightning right now. And so thank you for everybody's graciousness when we just decided to pivot forward for a week. And so we are picking up today, and I'm really, really happy to see you. I want to just first hold a little room for everything that is just going on right now. And so if you haven't already, in lieu of last week's happy hour video, I would love for you to go back. It's on my Facebook page. If you haven't seen it, and listen to the hour-long conversation that I did via video with my friend and just civil rights activist, Lisa Sharon Harper. We had a pretty profound and powerful conversation last week, and I wanted it to take up all the oxygen in the room. And so if you haven't, I'd love for you to go back and listen to that. We're going to also, we'll have that in a static place for you to be able to find it as well. But anyway, hi to this community that I love. Real quick, I want to do a little housekeeping thing because this is just a way to get your friends free things. A lot of you know that every single week during Fierce Happy Hour, we are giving away 15 audiobooks of Fierce, Free and Full of Fire, and 15 ebooks of Fierce, Free and Full of Fire every single week during happy hour. So we're giving away 30 copies to your friends. So you are the only people who can nominate the people to get them. And so here's how we're going to do it this week. As soon as this session is over with my friends, it will be posted on my Facebook page as a landing spot where it will be permanently in the comment section. So if you are watching this, in the comment section, tag a friend that you would like to receive a free book, a free copy of Fierce, and we're going to select from the comments this week. Okay, so that is the way to do it. Even if you've already nominated a friend, nominate them again. Put their names. You can do more than one, and we are going to choose from that list. So that's where nominations go this time. In the comment feed, we like to give away free copies of the book. Also invite them to join us on Mondays. We've got today, they can go back and rewatch on my Facebook page, but they can join us live. We still have week 4. We still have week 5. We'd love to have them pop in with us on Monday afternoons. Last thing, if you did not register for happy hour, you're super welcome. This is just a public. We're making the video and all the content. It's just available. It's free for everybody. But if you'll register, we can make sure to send it to you in your inbox so you don't miss it. It doesn't get lost in a bunch of my personal social media posts. It'll just come to your inbox where, well, if you're like me, all your emails go to die, right? Did anybody bring a snack? I have blueberries. This felt right for the day. I see your Yetis. Did I ask this question before? Are Yetis a Texas phenomenon or no? Okay, no. Oh, everybody's shaking their head. Okay. Everybody has Yetis. Yetis are worldwide. All right. See, you know what the problem just is now that I just demonstrated? Texans think everything is Texas related. We think we invented it. We think we perfected it. We think we're our own nation. So deepest apologies to the rest of the world. who doesn't live in Texas, but also drinks Yetis, drinks out of a Yeti. Apparently, they've built a real brand beyond our state lines. It's incredible. Good job, Yeti. Well done, you. Okay. So this week in this book, which is what we're doing here, this is our happy hour gathered around fierce. We are in section 3, which is the big umbrella idea over section 3 is what I want. So if you're new to our conversation, if this is your first time to join us, or you've just now started reading the book, Fierce is organized around 5 big ideas and telling the truth inside of those ideas. That's our path to freedom. So it's who I am. We tackled that week 1. What I need, which we did last time. This week is what I want. Next week is what I believe. We're going to go hard next week, you guys. Do not miss what I believe. I have things to say. And then our 5th week is how I connect. And the big idea here was that inside these huge elements of our lives, we, in some way, shape, or form, are not telling the truth. We are choosing to pretend or perform or polish or lie or hide. We're struggling in some way to allow what's real and true and good and genuine on the inside to have full expression on the outside. We are rather choosing to keep the peace. Keep the peace. That's quotation marks, because choosing to keep the peace does not keep the peace. We may keep the peace, but we have no peace, right? Or we are afraid of the turbulence that it's going to create in our relationships that we have patched together with our silence or with our complicity, right? So this is the main idea, that if you and I are sincerely going to live free and fierce and full of fire, we're going to have to tell the truth. That's our only path to the other side. And so this week, we apply that big idea to the concept of what I want. And I think where I want to start with you today, and we are, by the way, going to take questions. Chrissy, I forgot to tell you that. Or I meant to tell you to tell Chrissy your questions. Over in the chat, let me turn that on right now. Oh, look, you're already there. Guys, the internet is hard for me, and you know it, okay? I see you now over there. If you have it down at the bottom of your screen, you can hit chat, and that's where your words go. So that is where you can connect with each other, and also you can be logging questions, which Chrissy is pulling out of the atmosphere, and I'm going to answer a few of them at the end of this session. This is also the first time I curled my hair in, I'm going to say 2 weeks. I keep looking at myself on my little square in our Zoom, and I'm like, who's that? Also, these are earrings by Noonday. Aren't they cute? I wore these on the Today Show, and I feel like they need to have a second showing. Okay. Here's the big idea. What you want is wantable. Okay, so that's my thesis. That what it is that you want is a wantable thing. You have permission to want it. Full permission to want it. And I want to start with that because there's a very similar glitch in the matrix here that we discussed in week 2, which is so many of us were told both subtly and absolutely overtly that we, particularly women, girls for sure, were not really allowed to want. We were not allowed to want big. We were not allowed to have big appetites for anything. We were not allowed to take like big, huge, gulpy gasps of life and want things with ferocity or with passion or with ambition. Our hunger, women's hunger in general has always been suspect, right? It's been, whoa, you need to simmer down. That's too much. That's too greedy. That is not becoming. That's not the way ladies behave. Girls, I remember we just picked this up in the atmosphere, right? And so for some of us, and again, I say this every week, but I know that we do not all come to this conversation, to this sort of internal work from the same faith background, and some of us have no faith background, and that's fine, because this work is universal. This is human being work. But for those of us who are listening and grew up inside certain spiritual environments, there was an added spiritual boundary, a spiritual layer on top of all this, which was big desire for something, a big want, a big dream, a big appetite, was selfish. That was some sort of indicator that you were not loving others more than yourself, or putting yourself, last and others first. And we know those scriptures, like those are like beautiful sentiments. But they've been applied to us with such, like, as a bludgeon, and as if that way of, that worldview of being in the world as a good neighbor and a good sister and a servant of our families and communities cancels out any of our desire, right? Like, these were our choices. You get this or you get this. But somehow they are mutually exclusive. And I am just here to say no. I am just here to say that was a terrible, terrible misuse of scripture, kind of as a weapon to keep people just small and silent, particularly women. We didn't see that applied quite as much to the men. We were always the grease for the machine, not the fuel. And so fuel, when we had fuel inside of us, that was like, ooh, no, easy, right? And so we just digested this, and it became a part of the air that we breathed, right? And so so in the same way that in the week 2, we really debunked the notion that some of us believed, which is, I am not worthy of goodness, right? That's what we talked about last time, because we were inherently bad. Thus, we couldn't trust our hearts. We've got similar work here to unpack this week, which is this. You may have sensed or been told or assumed or just intuited that you could not trust your desires, because what you want, again, that big word, what you want is bound in some way to be bad or selfish or too ambitious or not ambitious enough. We get that one weird 1-2 punch, or unreasonable. And so thus, when you combine kind of last week's work and this week's work, not only could we not trust our hearts, we couldn't trust our desires either. That both of them should be viewed with great suspicion and minimized or squashed or reduced. And so, of course, this not only takes us out of our dreams, as we read in chapter 7. Wait, I can't remember. Chapter 7. But it also deeply affects our yeses and nos, which we really took a hard look at chapter 8. I want to just look at you on my screen. And it's okay to be honest, even if what it is a really positive side of you. How many of you would say that you struggle with giving the yeses and the nos, because they go together, that you actually want to give? I'd like to just see. Oh, darn. Oh, no. Welp. That's almost all of us. This is so near and dear to me. There's a quote, and this is so unfair. It gets attributed to me a lot, and it wasn't mine. I don't remember where I first said it, I cite the source, but somehow this is now attached to me as my mantra. But probably one of the best books that I have ever read on how to discern our yeses and our nos in a way that puts us at highest capacity, and I put it in here, is Essentialism by Greg McKeown. Did anybody ever read that? I I must have loaned my copy out because I was just looking for it so I could hold it up. Incredible, incredible book. One of the little tools that I told you in here that I learned from him was where he just boiled down the lens in which to consider our yeses and nos by saying, I love this because this is short and sweet. It works for me in a pinch. That when we are facing an option and we're trying to evaluate if this is going to be a yes or a no for us, what he says is, if it is not a hell yes, then it is a no. And one of the tools I gave you in here was something that I learned from him, which did you get to the part, did you read the part about 90% when you give something a score? For those of you who haven't gotten to it yet, or you haven't read the book yet, first of all, come on. Second of all, this was the thing that he said, and I cannot tell you how much this has instructed me. When I'm looking at a thing, and all of us have a lot of options, right? We have 100 options for every 5 spots. So it's not that we don't have a lot of options in front of us, but he said, I deeply evaluate, what is my end game? What's my goal? Where do I want to go? What is my hunger, right? What's my want? What are my dreams? And they are valid, and they are good, and they are true, and you can trust them, right? I mean, thank goodness for all the people that are courageous enough to bring their dreams to fruition, because they make this world beautiful, and they make it connected, and they bring it to life, and it's vibrant, and it's innovation, and it's creativity, and it's everything that's good. Everything that anyone has ever brought to bear on this earth was a dream in their heart that they said yes to. Why wouldn't we want to participate in that good work, right? You're worthy of your dream, whatever it is that you are seated with, however big, however small, however audacious, however simple, however unlikely, whatever the thing is, like, you are literally worthy of it. And so as we consider, what is that end game that we want? Where is it that we want to go? We create a pretty clear metric for it, that these are the things that will move me there. These are the things that I am able to contribute. And then when every opportunity comes in, we put that end game, we put the goal, the metric really clearly in our brain. And then we evaluate that opportunity between a 0 and 100. And if it scores 1 point below a 90, if it is an 89, we change its score to a 0 and we move it off the deck. Like, it feels so harsh because women are so accustomed to saying yes to everything that's a 52 and above, right? I mean, we're like, oh, sure, I guess. You know why we say yes. We feel obligated. We feel bad. We wonder who else will do it. We feel like we owe that person something. But there's a host of reasons why we do that. And so thus we have so many 61s on our plates, and they're stealing from not just our kind of joy and energy and gifting, but also what's possible for us. And this is a fun fact. I don't know if you know this, but when we hand out a bunch of garbage no's, when we say no's to all those lower percentages because we feel bad or it's out of obligation, the fun little byproduct of that is resentment. So yay, that's really fun to walk around with all the time. And we sit in this simmering resentment against the person that asked us or the task that we said yes to. But here's the hard thing. I say this with love, but we don't get to be resentful for saying yes to something when we could have said no. That's on us, right? We said yes, so that person gets to believe that we meant it. That person gets to believe that our yes was sincere. That's not their fault. The problem is nobody can read our minds, and I hate that. Like, I seriously hate that. And nobody sits around trying to think how to protect our energy and our gifting in the world. I hate that too. There's no meetings happening around it. Like, how can we offer her only the 90s and above so that she never even has to say no, right? There is not, that committee doesn't exist, and it's a terrible injustice. So thus, we are yet again left with this being our work. I wish I had a different message But apparently that's what I told you in every single page of Fierce. It's our work, all of it. Everything that's dysfunctional in our life, everything that's robbing us of peace, everything that we are allowing to happen that is toxic or poisonous or even abusive, the relationships, it's our work. Like we get to decide what we are saying yes to, what we're saying no to. We get to decide what we're putting our hand to. We get to decide what we're going to allow out of our relationships. And we're going to talk heavily about that in week 5. On how I connect and what those boundaries look like, because relationships have the opportunity, of course, to give us the most amount of joy on this earth or the least. So that's a big category. That's going to be week 5 for sure. But this is ours. And so our dream requires our cooperation. It's just that simple. You're the only one to bring it to life. In your workbook that we sent you this week for week 3, there's one section that we include every single week. And the title of that particular page and section to fill out is, do you play the game? Because again, we can't blame everybody for asking us to do stuff. This is our work. So we've got to turn the mirror inside. Do I play the game? Where am I saying yes when I mean no, or no when I mean yes? And here were the questions that I would just love for you to just listen to and just see what comes up for you. See what kind of rises in you. If you could be just in the still of your own room, of your own heart, nobody's listening. This is private. You can just deeply evaluate this without any judgment or eyeballs on it or an accountability for it, anything. Just listen and see what comes up for you, because here's some of the questions. Do you say yes because you think you should? And I want you to be thinking specifically of something right now that is no longer serving you, or maybe never even did. Something that is taking the place of something more possible, more prioritized in your life, of something that you're angry about, you're resentful about, whatever. Do you say yes because you don't want to let someone down? Do you say yes? This could also be no, by the way. This could toggle either way. Because of a religious value or some sort of belief that you have inside your faith system, right? Do you say yes because it'll make you look good? Uh-oh. The Enneagram things are like, you don't know me. Do you say yes because it's easy? It's easier. Do you say yes because you're afraid to say no? Or vice versa. Do you say no because you're afraid to say yes? So I want to point out something. Hello, Nikki. You just made a really good comment that I embedded in the very last paragraph of that chapter. And I wish I would have given it a little bit more attention, because this is what I said in the closing sentences of the yes and no chapter. Your 62 is someone else's 90. So let them have it. Like, let them have it. That is something that they could step into with joy and like absolute enthusiasm, and maybe even a better skill set to apply to it than your 60 that you're applying to it, right? So we're actually taking each other's place when we continue to hand out the 60s. And so I wish I would have spent a little bit more time on that, because I've actually watched people step into voids that I felt like was going to be a void because I said no to it. And then just like that, look at this leader rise up and take her place right where I was going to be, in an angry way. I was going to be angry. I was going to be resentful. I was going to be pissed at everybody for asking me to do it in the first place. And then this leader gets to step into her space. And so what a wonderful way to think about it. This is the last thing I'm going to say, and I'm going to go to your questions. I think it's this idea of scarcity that holds a lot of us back inside this particular work. First of all, when it comes to our dreams, so many of us refuse to step into the work, the passion, the spaces that we would love to, because we believe it's already been done, that there's not enough to go around, right? Somebody already wrote your book. Somebody already started your business. Somebody already created your art. Somebody already took that spot that you were eyeballing, and somebody already did it better. And so there's this sense that there's a very limited amount to go around, and you missed your boat. You missed your window. And I don't believe this for 1 second. I think scarcity is one of our greatest enemies. I can tell you what I've discovered. There's enough of everything. There really is. There is enough business. There is enough literature. There's enough art. There's enough innovation. There's enough goodness and kindness to go around. It multiplies. I'm telling you, it does not divide. It multiplies. And I'll tell you what one of its greatest fuel sources is that when women decide to celebrate one another's successes instead of seeing that woman as your competitor, right? We feed the lie of scarcity when we look sideways and go, it's all already been done. And so I'm mad at these girls. I'm mad at them because they got to it first. And now I'm just going to have to just eat dirt, right? And so I think we can really reverse this impulse by celebrating one another. Even if that woman has stepped squarely into the zip code that you want to live in, for you to come behind her and applaud her and cheer her on and cheer for her successes and be a part of her community. This, to me, dismantles this terrible idea of scarcity that is applied to us and begins to show us by example and by internalized truth that there actually is enough. There's more for you. Really, I've said this so many times and for so many years, but nobody can do exactly what you do the way you do it. Nobody. You're it. Will you be in a genre that already exists? Yes. The world's been around for a long time. Stuff's been done. Okay. So we may not reinvent something from scratch, but it does not mean there is not room for more. And so I think scarcity keeps us sidelined, and I'm determined to battle it in our community. Okay. There's enough to go around. Which is why you can feel very confident saying no to a 78 that got put on your plate, because there is enough incredible people in our community who will step into that space, right? There's enough of everything. Okay. Those chapters are packed, honestly, like packed with ideas and little conversation starters and prompts and ways in which you can begin to confidently step toward the incredible desires that you have been seeded with. And you can trust those desires, okay? Because they are good, and I cannot wait to see them come to life. Okay. Snack time. Chrissy, have you selected a couple of pretty good questions for us to noodle as a community?
Yes, we have a lot of great questions. I'm going to throw to Sherry first, who has a question about figuring out what you want.
Sherry. Hi. Where are you?
Can you see me? I'll keep
waving. No, I can.
There we go.
Hi. Is it Sherry or is it Cherie?
Sherry.
Sherry, got it.
Okay. Yeah. So my question is maybe one step before the conversation we just had.
Yeah.
So the question is, what are the steps, like the actual real steps that you've taken to figure out what you want?
Yeah.
So as another Enneagram 3,
oh yeah.
I know how to identify what other people want and what they would be proud of if I did. And I know how to figure out what they need. I'm really good at that. But as I've entered my mid 40s, I'm not sure that I know how to figure out what I want. That's more opaque to me than it's ever been.
Oh man. It's hard to reclaim once we've gone a couple of decades where we have bent our personalities and the roles that we play around what everybody else wants. It can be really, really hard to reclaim. And I don't think there's a really one size fits all answer here. I can tell you in some ways, and this has been my experience and one that I've observed in the community, sometimes if we are able to go back in our minds to a handful of things that were abundantly clear to us as girls, as kids, there are a lot of clues embedded in that. The sorts of things that we loved, what brought us to life, what we were willing to try before somebody told us we weren't worthy to try it. What we did in our rooms, what we did when we were imagining, the sort of dreams that we dreamed. Now, some of those are just simply immature. I wanted to be like a background dancer for Janet Jackson. You see what I'm saying? They're not all worthy. Some of them need to be perhaps laid down, but I find a lot of clues inside of there. Like, for example, I was a teacher. So I was a teacher before I was a writer or a speaker, whatever the heck. But as I exited that space and really began to ask the same questions that you're asking, there were a lot of clues in my growing up years that went, oh, words, writing, storytelling, leadership, like they were in there. It was the raw material. It wasn't developed. Sometimes you have to go backwards and see if you can connect some dots, because they don't necessarily present themselves to you as a developed package. But you can sometimes pick up a handful of threads and be like, there I was. There I was. Like, that is what I loved. And that is what brought me to life. And that's what I was good at. That's what I was dreaming about, my sweet little innocent mind. Sometimes though, let me make this one last suggestion before we go to the next question. I really love this question. And I deeply believe that if you give yourself permission to examine this and to really consider what is possible in front of you, you will find this. I know that you will. You will find this. It will give itself to you. It wants to. You're the one to bring it to life. You're the only one. But sometimes I have also found that when things feel very opaque, and that was a great word that you used, and I need clarity, the people that know me the best and love me the most, and those two things matter, that want the best for me, they love me, they know me well, are really great clue givers. When you can say, like, what do you see in me? What is it that you see in me that is my giftedness? What do you feel like I am offering well or could offer well? What is your experience of me when I'm kind of at my best self? And you may be surprised what people observe in you that you struggle to observe in yourself. Those are also that's a really good front door to at least narrowing the field, right? Just bringing it from like every possibility on God's earth down to something that is probably a little bit more tailor-made for you. I love that you're asking this question. I cannot wait for you to find the answer. This is exciting. Report back. Okay, Christy.
All right, we are heading over to Becca Dorval.
Hi.
Hey.
My question is actually along the similar lines of that. You talked about, in I Want the Dream, about the people around you maybe being hesitant about you reaching out for what you want because it disrupts their life or whatever. And you said they're not monsters. They're maybe monster adjacent. I love that.
Yes, I was trying to be nice.
But I wrote down the question for myself in there is, what if you're kind of your own monster? What if you become your own monster because you either one, don't entirely know what you want, which is what the last question was. Like, to me, the whole idea of the dream, like that feels really big and very overwhelming.
Yes.
So what if you don't really know what your dream is? And then you're the person who gets in your own way because that feels really hard and really like just a lot of work. Like, that sounds horrible. I'm not a lazy person, I swear, but I spent 15 years in the military, got out to be a mom. And then I'm like, well, now my kids are getting older. I want more, but what if I'm getting in my own way, and how do I get out of my own way?
I love your question. And I really want to address something you just said, because it absolutely bears repeating, because sometimes this whole idea of this is my dream feels like if your dream does not involve building a multi-million-dollar 501c3, then just forget it. Get out of the conversation, right? Like, it's such a big word. It comes with this sort of big conceptual space with it, that this has to be something so hard to find, like this teeny little bullseye that, well, good luck, or else you're just going to live a life of misery. I would love to direct you to a conversation I had on my podcast over at For the Love podcast with Elizabeth Gilbert a few weeks ago. She was a part of the Fierce podcast series, and I loved everything she had to say about this. I would love for you to immediately stop this after we're done and go listen to that when she really talked beautifully and saliently. And one thing that she said was, I don't like the word, listen, you guys, I'm sorry. I have so many things to say about her that I can't pick one. When you speak to Elizabeth, it's like you just need to like lean in and like lay your head on her lap and just let her like stroke your hair. She's so ethereal and I love how she is. And she's like, I don't love the word passion. It has too much pressure on it, right? Like if we don't discover our passion, that we have robbed the world of our gifts. And she's like, I prefer the term curiosity. And I was like, isn't that a great way to think about it? When you think about your dream, I wonder if it gives you a little bit more room to breathe if you just consider it curiosity. I'm curious about what might really bring me joy. Like what might be a way in which I get to live on this earth at my fullest capacity. Like I'm curious what that might be, because at that point you don't really have to know the end game. I had no idea the end game. Most of us don't. You don't have to know the whole thing. You can just kind of know the next thing. And so I think for some of us, the reason I like these two chapters in tandem is that for so many of us, our plates are so overloaded, we couldn't come up with 1 minute to think about that if we wanted to. There's no energy left, right? We don't have any space devoted to really deeply considering, like, what do I want? What do I want? And so I think sometimes one of those first steps is rotating in a handful of pretty important no's that you've probably been meaning to give, or you at least know you need to. Like, let me unload a handful of things, handful of 71s off of my plate and just make a little room. Let me just create a little breathing room and then see what I can discover. Let me just be curious toward it. Again, it would be our own inner monsters that would keep us from that work, because we would say, number one, we don't have permission to offload anything we have on our plate. No's are selfish. And then number two, I don't know what my dream would be. That feels like too big of a concept, so I'm just going to not even think about it. And so I think if we came into that in incremental steps, instead of just imagining that someday some big, developed, beautiful, fancy idea of a career change is going to drop itself into our laps. That's not everybody's dream. Everybody's dream doesn't involve a career, right? Dreams are in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it's like, my dream is to retire early. My dream is to downsize. My dream is to live lighter on this earth. My dream is to RV for a year. It's not always some big thing we're going to create. Sometimes it's the way we want to live. So I hope that you can kind of expand what's possible and stay curious toward it and not box it in to some fancy idea of what bringing a dream to life looks like, and rather let it be what it is in your life, and in your family and in your relationships. Also, excited to hear what you find out. Report back. Okay, Christy, we probably have time for a couple more.
Wonderful. We are going to unmute Karen Parnell.
Karen, you're right next to me on my screen.
Me too.
Yay.
My question was, I wanted to go back actually to Sherry's question about one of the things that's been helpful in determining, one of the metrics that I use to look at is what breaks my heart. Is there something out there that just touches my heart or breaks my heart a little bit? Then that's where I try to send in figuring out what it is my dreams or wants are. So that was just,
I love that.
That's for free. But my question is, how do you see our wants and our dreams intersecting with our calling or vocation, our calling from God?
Again, if I was going to channel Elizabeth Gilbert right now, and I think we all know that I cannot do that, way too demonstrative and melodramatic. But I think sometimes, especially in faith circles, I find this concept to be deeply embedded in organized religion, but not necessarily resonant outside of the steeples, which is this idea of calling. I mean, I grew up with that language. I know exactly what you're talking about. I am right tracking with you. But I think there's this high pressure concept of calling that's freaky. And it has freaked me out before too. Like, what does calling mean? Because that feels daunting. And that feels like, boy, if I miss it, I have ruined and wasted my life, you know? And so I would also like to apply the idea of curiosity to that. That for a lot of us, calling isn't some very narrow target that is our responsibility to find, but rather it can meander and it can change and it can shift. And if we want to apply something so concrete to our lives as calling, I wonder if we would give ourselves permission to do it in a much more generous way. Like my calling, for example, if you forced me to put this on paper, would be something like, my calling is to get to the end of my life and be able to say, I loved well. Like I left nothing on the table. I jumped in with both feet. I loved people ferociously, and when it was easy and when it was hard. So that to me is an umbrella in which I'm willing to place my whole life, knowing that the little tentacles underneath it may change 100,000 times before I get to the end of it, right? The way in which I do that will shift, and I don't know. I have no idea. I had no idea I was going to be sitting here talking to people on Zoom in the year 2020 about a book I wrote, right? And so, but I wonder if we can be really generous with the idea of calling, then we're free inside of it, right? We're free to try things out. We're free to fail. We are free to start once and then restart a different way, and without this sort of incapacitating pressure to get some really, really small target exactly right. I don't think I answered your question. I'm pretty sure that I didn't, and I'm sorry. I think you asked a really good question, and then I just didn't answer it. Gosh, I don't know what you're going to ask. I have to do this on the fly. I love your question, and I thank you for asking it. Okay. Chrissy?
All right, we are going to Carrie.
Okay.
Hey, I wanted to throw out one other thing that just clicked into my brain for maybe the first time since we've been talking to you, related to back to Sherry's question, but like, and I also like the idea of thinking, like we're talking about, like the obligated response isn't a good one. So for me, what I've learned to trust is what makes me feel alive. And as the 3 on the Enneagram, especially, like that shifts me somehow into a different space. So yeah. Anyway, in case that's helpful, but I currently work in direct sales. I lead a large team, so I'm leading women all the time, and so most of them have a faith context. So my question for you, Jen, is, because I get this a lot, is a lot of what I'm trying to do is wake up wanting and help them see that that's good and that's a gift and the world is good. Yay. But what I hear also is like this idea, but what about being content? So how does contentment connect with this, like waking up the wanting that blesses the world? So
yeah, I think that's a great conversation to have. And I want to go back to something I said a minute ago, which is that it's possible, and especially since I wrote this book and I'm just like a big, big loudmouth. And so some of the ways that I framed our desire feels all big and bold. And that's just because that's what it is for me. So that's my personal experience. But again, I think let's make tons of room for what wanting means. Not everybody wants more and more and bigger, right? That's not the caveat that gets attached to wanting. Wanting doesn't only count when it is a complete sea change or a total renovation or some really big idea. We all have permission to want at whatever level we want. And so for tons of them, I can think of them right now in my life, their greatest desire, like if you were like, what do you really want? They would say to you, I want to live like in this simple, quieter way, because everything is so noisy right now and it's so overstimulating for everybody. I want to live quiet. I want to live very connected to my little family and my little community. And that's what I want. I'm like, that counts. That is a good want. And that is what probably some of the women in your community would brand as contentment. And so let's be really generous in our use of the word want and desire, that all of it counts. So whatever it is you want, it might be something very relational. It might not be professional, right? This might have nothing to do with your career, although it may. Maybe it has to do with how and where you live. Maybe, I don't know. Like, to me, I have nothing but like possibility for that. And so I think also for those of us who have this bent toward wanting what would be considered something big, again, I don't even like these terms. I think they level them off and make them graded, and I don't find that fair at all. But there are also pockets inside of every single one of our lives where we would do well to hold gently contentment in our hands, right? Things that are beautiful, things that are lovely, things that are serving us, things that we're grateful for. The practice of gratitude has incredibly nourished me, to be able to say, in the midst of change or new ideas or building, I'm always building something, or creating, I'm always creating something. These are a handful of stable things in my life that give me immense happiness. And I will notice them and I will call them out and I will also give them energy. And so I hope that we don't feel like we have to choose between wanting and contentment. I think both of those can live beautifully, right nestled inside of every single one of our lives at the exact same time. And so I'm always resisting the binary ideas. We can have both. We can cultivate gratitude and contentment. We can cultivate desire and ambition, or great, fun, innovative ideas that we want to rotate into our lives. Both. Great questions. Also, I'm loving all your comments over here. I miss them while we're talking. And so my incredible team downloads every single one of your comments and sends them to me when we're done. And I just sit and go through them. I'm like, well, I wish I'd have read that. It's incredible. Chrissy, maybe one more?
Absolutely. So we are going to go to April Bragg for the last question.
Hi, Jen. Can you see me?
Yes, I see you in your hat. You're a cutie cute.
Good to see you again. Okay. My question is, and it'll take me just 2 minutes to read through this, but how do we know the difference between being 100% committed to what we want and when we are being too rigid and need to compromise? Mm-hmm. Glennon Doyle has this great quote: "What if imagination isn't where we go to escape reality, but where we go to remember reality?" Mm-hmm. So for this question, I'm kind of thinking in the context of a romantic relationship where we often have a list of what we want, but sometimes I get the feeling that it's not really realistic. I think respect and love and positive things should be on the list, but what if that person has a hobby but is great in lots of other ways? How do you know it's okay to compromise? Is that just intuition? Another example would be if you're trying to get something you want and it isn't working, like fertility issues. How do you know when to reassess what you want versus reality?
Yeah, this is a great question and a big one. That has a lot of tendrils that probably don't have a template that I can lay over it where it fits every single possible scenario. But I think this is where our fifth week is going to come into play for us, because I think we get these pretty clear ideas of what we want. And inside of all these places, we're human people in relationship with human people. And so there is, of course, like a degree of flex, a degree of compromise, a degree of meeting in the middle. So I wonder if, again, we could reimagine the want as some of those things aren't up for grabs, which would be, like, for example, inside of a relationship, mutual respect, kindness, whatever. Some things are just standards that we're not willing to compromise on those. We're not willing to accept mistreatment, or you name it, right? Those underneath that, it's just work to be in a relationship with another human. And so underneath that has to live some incredible other tenets like forgiveness, humility, grace. Because here's the thing, even us, absolute angels, every one of us on this call, obviously, like perfect creatures, we also have the capacity to be like wrong and gross inside our relationships. It's rare, like it's once a year at most, but it's possible. And so I think what we hold in one hand are the standards of dignity and goodness, like we discussed in week 2. And in the other, we hold the tools of human connection: love, I'm sorry, I forgive you. Let's talk about it. Let's rework it out. Let's reimagine it. Tell me how you're feeling. That's just a part of the deal. And so I would prefer, my preference is just to always be right and everybody to know that. That's my preference. And that is just the way our relationships operate. And then I'm not ever required to flex. I just get what I want because I did it right the first time, right? Why can't everybody just do it right the first time? But I haven't found that to be true. And so this is where, again, I want to go back to this idea that I really believe you can trust your heart. I do. Like, I don't believe that putting goals and wants and desires kind of as a stake in the ground means that requires us to forfeit every bit of tenderness we ever had. I don't buy it, right? I think just because we are willing to say these are some non-negotiables and some things that I really want out of life, that does not now mean that we have forfeited all human flexibility to rethink or to be a good partner, or to say we got it wrong, or to reimagine it. So if we can sort of resist these binary ideas, and realize, no, what I want is good, my heart, I'm going to trust myself here, then you can also trust yourself to bend left when you thought you were going to bend right, because your good mind and your good heart is reading the room, and you're like, oh, okay, I now see I need to pivot. I need to pivot this way. That's the right choice. You will do that, and you can do that. And so I think we hold some of our ideas really loosely, and inside of them, we still operate with our absolute human best practices. And I trust you to do that. I trust all of us to do that, and to be incredibly possible. And so thank you for your question. Thank you for asking such good one, you guys. Your questions this week are so nuanced, which I love. I love nuance. We have sacrificed nuance in our culture to ask these really important questions about how to hold two things at once, right? How to hold two ideas at once, how to increase dialogue and conversation and like understanding person to person. I really, really appreciate your incredible questions. Okay, guys, that's it. That's it. I love our hour together. Again, I said this to you guys last time. I don't know how you've pulled off an hour in the middle of your day, and I'm not going to ask questions. I'm just going to say, you did it. I don't know what you had to do. I don't care, and I don't judge. But I'm so happy that you did. Thank you. Don't forget to go over to my Facebook page, and you can nominate your friends to get free books, free audiobook, free ebook. Just tag them in the comments. We're going to choose from that list today. And it's exciting. We'll give away 30 copies every single week of Happy Hour. And tell them to join us next week. We'll be here again on Monday, same time, same place. I love having my Jen Hatmaker OG Book Club here. It's very, very special. Guys, what a month we're going to have in July. You got our email. We have pivoted, and that is also what our community does. And so in July, we are reading Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Latasha Morrison. We used your incredible membership fees to pay her, and she will come be our coaching us in the ways of anti-racism for the Jen Hatmaker Book Club community. And so lucky us, you guys, lucky us. You hung into this book club for a year and you were right. You made a good choice. I'm so happy that you're here. Anyway, thank you for spending your afternoon with me, and I will see you guys again next week. Bye, everybody.